My name is Carol White, and I hail from Zimbabwe in Africa. And I am a business alchemist. After many, many moons of working in the trenches and at boardroom tables, I'm going to take you down memory lane, and we're going to look at what it's like to take raw material and turn it into gold for people, for yourself, and for the business that you work for.
Now, welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show, your ultimate destination for exclusive insights into the journeys of remarkable individuals that are shaping the world of business and beyond. I'm your host, ProsperTaruvinga, and today I think we're going to be brewing up a conversation that's as rich and invigorating as your favorite cup of tea. Now, Carol, how are you doing today?
I'm reflective, Prosper.
Nice. I like that. You see, so many people give me, oh, I'm doing all right, and I'm excited to be on the show. But reflective gives a bit of depth to the kind of person that you actually are, because we're going to be going on a journey, aren't we? You know, experiencing where you've been, the highs and lows, and what has made you the business alchemist. I can't wait to jump into that. And for those that are watching right now, yes, I did mention she is Carol White, a business alchemist whose career spans not one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 decades across banking, tourism, logistics, and media. And when she said she's being reflective, there's a lot of mileage to cover, and I'm hoping the next 45 minutes is going to be one for the books. So she hails from managing high-end resorts in Africa to penning thought-provoking columns like Tea Talk with Carol, hence the anecdote that I put earlier, and I was alluding to your favorite cup of tea. So this could be one of those, private chats that you would have with a business alchemist herself. And Carol has consistently turned challenges into opportunities, infusing every endeavor with a blend of humor, wisdom, and unwavering determination. Now, Carol, I could go on and talk about things that I'm not even qualified to talk about. I mean, you could maybe take me out of my misery. It's been 5 decades you doing what it is that you do. Tell us about the earliest memory that you remember of you in the working environment.
Prosper, thank you. I think I'll never forget when I got my job at Barclays Bank, Selborne Avenue in Bulawayo in Zimbabwe. And I was so excited because in my day, the options with O-levels was teaching or hairdressing or the post office. And those were things I was not going to do. And uni was not on the cards. I wanted to be a journalist. I cried. I think it was only in the last probably 3 years that I've reconciled emotionally with that thought that my parents did not have the funds for me to be a journalist. And then I got into very busy jobs, and I never did the degree in journalism. And it's still something that I love. I love writing. So I got the job at Barclays through a friend, and they were only taking on 2 O-level students, and the rest were university graduates. And I was so excited. I remember that first day. And I think first days, and even up until recently, the first month in a job I just hate. The first day at school. So I actually reflect on my first day of school. My mother said, "Don't be scared. And I went in, I didn't cry, no one was crying. And I remember playing with a little telephone. So I use that as my anchor whenever I start something new. So my job with Barclays at the age of 18 was, don't be scared, go in there, do your best. And you also realize no one's looking at you. Everyone's looking at themselves. Everyone's got their own mission. So I learned that very early on. Don't focus on what people are thinking about you. And I think that's probably been a saving grace. And I was persistent and I practiced what I needed to do, which in the waste department in Barclays was very systematic. Back in those days, before computers, those big computers were still in their infancy. So yes, and my father loved Gary Player. My father was a golfer, and Gary Player, his famous words were always practice. And I just said, okay, I'm not a university student. I am a O-level a student, but I am going to make it, and I'm going to practice, and I'm going to do it until I can do it.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for opening us up with that, because you know what that really showcases me in the way that you responded to that is you are somebody that obviously would look at a situation and turn it into, you know, whatever challenge that you have, you turn it into a success story. Now, from what you're saying, it does sound like it was a very competitive nature that you were in, because as you mentioned, you only had O levels, but the cream of the people that were being brought in had university sort of grade type education and things of that nature. Could you maybe walk us through what the sort of nature of that competition would have been like for anybody else?
Well, you know what? It was really starting at the bottom. And I mean, starting at the bottom. And the waste department in the bank was the bottom of the rung. And I didn't care because I just fell in love with that great big eagle, which was Barclays' logo until recently when they were bought out. And I fell in love with the brand and the story of the brand. So I said, I'm going to be the ambassador for this brand, and I'm going to do my best. And I was a little brownie when I was 9 years old, and I think the slogan was "Do your best, give a helping hand, whatever." So that was my personal ethos: give a helping hand and do what I can do. And so I'm very very able to cut out the noise. So you can be competitive, you can have the best outfits, you can be the most amazing whatever, but I'm going to do it step by step, and then I'm going to improve. You know, I remember when I was in ledger department, I went from waste department now to ledgers, and the supervisor called me and said, Miss White, you're very good at your job. However, you are too slow at typing. And, you know, you had to type the ledger cards, the names of the people. So, you know, those old-fashioned typewriters. So I went and did a course in Bulawayo in Fort Street. And you may remember the top end of Fort Street was not a very pretty place. And there were like 3 typewriters for 20 people. So I just got a copy of the notes. And then during my lunch hour at the bank, I would sit and learn how to do that. So, you know what it also means is that I have empathy for people starting out from scratch, but I also am always wanting people to push themselves. Don't feel sorry for yourself. So I could have gone in a heap and said, oh, I have to, now I'm you know, they'd say I can't type, I'm not good. No, I'm good at what I'm doing. Fine, go and learn to type, improve your skill, and off you go. And so I've been a manager along the way that if I'm interacting, I will tell somebody what their shortcomings, their learning points, their good points, and particularly their good points. So the thing that was good about that supervisor was that, you know, she used that sales sandwich approach. You're good at your job. However, you're too slow on typing. Go and fix it. Isn't that cool?
Absolutely. I quite like that. You see, the whole thing about this is when you start from the bottom, you are learning just about every other skill. Whereas when somebody comes in and they are given a position at the top, they skip out all this street type learning,
Yes.
which is what you absolutely, had to do. And there's always an essence of ego or pride that I wouldn't be caught or seen doing certain things. You did mention Fort Street in Bulawayo was not obviously one of the best type of streets in that sort of city. What was the environment like being that girl working in a bank and having to obviously um you know grow and be around that sort of environment yourself?
Well, look, don't forget back in those days, it was still pretty white. So most people were white, employed some Indians in ledger departments. So I was in ledger department. And so at the end of work, we would all stand on the corner and wait for our buses. And people would say to me, "Why are you standing with the Indians?" And I'll say, "Really? I'm working with them. They're my friends." And so you're from Zimbabwe, so you understand that whole background. And that was 73. So within 10 years that had all changed. But Fort Street and all of that area was hustle bustle, full of market street people. And I love that. Besides, I say I'm an alchemist. I love different people. So I'm fascinated. I like a whole potpourri of people. So yes, it was different. And the bank was a great grounding. 7 or 8 years in the bank, working my way up through all the departments. And then in 1976, a lot of people were leaving Rhodesia at the time because they saw that there was going to be a change in government, and so preceding that, I was then working in Avondale branch in exchange control, and that started my fascination with people and listening and hearing what they had to say about and while they were leaving and what they were taking. And then there was Reserve Bank regulations of what you could and couldn't take. And our Barclays head office had a good relationship with Reserve Bank. So we were always able to make it work for the customer, but also make it work for the Reserve Bank. So it was fascinating. I dealt with lawyers. I was 21, 22 years old. And I was mixing with people on that intellectual level. So creating conversations, creating strategy, ideals came from the people that I talked to. So what if I'm 21 and I've got O levels and I'm not rich? I'm having fun. I'm learning.
See,
I was growing my wings.
Absolutely. What I really like about that is the foundational bit that really then, showcases how you then grew your career, because it is all about people, and there had to be a diverse amount of cultures and, people that you had to interact with in order for you to then refine the processes that you are now offering. But throughout your career, you've actually managed diverse teams and diverse sectors. How are you, or were you able to tailor your leadership to then approach these different industries and also different cultures, that you were coming across at that particular time?
I think it's a combination of listening and really listening. Sometimes you think somebody wants something, but if you ask them, they don't want that. They want something else. So just listen. And then put people in the right places, doing the right things, so that you start to talk less about color or culture or even what their personal goals are, and you create a culture within the company that is focused on what the company is requiring the team to do, but then allows the team to have their own personality. So I think if you let people have their own personality and you don't throw everyone in a box and say you're all going to be in here. We're talking about crabs the other day, and it was making me laugh because I couldn't remember the movie with the crabs and that funny Goldie Hawn movie. But I don't want to be a crab in that box, and I don't expect anyone else to be. So I think along the way, although in my early days I was quite quiet and reserved, I learned the trade of business, of how to interact, of how to speak and listen, because customers actually tell you what they want. There's no surprises. If you just shut up, you'll hear all the answers. But everybody wants to go in with their 5-point plan, their 3-point process, their cats and their dogs. And meanwhile, the person wants to talk to you about their dream last night, which reflects into what their vision is. And we miss that as managers. And so along the way, I was always the unspoken leader, because people followed me and I didn't have the title. So I often have said to team members, don't worry about having the title. Don't worry about having the car. Back in the old days, the briefcase, the business card holder. Don't worry about those things. Don't worry. Think about what the business wants, and can you fit into that? And if you can't fit into it, it's like a relationship, leave. If you can't fix it, go. Don't make your own life miserable and everyone else's life miserable.
I like that, because if the shoe doesn't fit, don't wear it. It's not going to work for you. And I like how you are alluding to the fact that you were that leader with no title, because while I was looking, up your work, your Tea Talk column really emphasizes about showing up and also being present. Okay, so you've already explained that being present to the client and literally listening to them, because they will tell you what it is that they're looking for. Now, how has this mindset influenced your own professional journey?
Good question. I think I was always a business person. I love business. I'm sure that in another life I must have been an Arab trader, and I must have come in one of those ships to Sofala Bay, which is Maputo, I think, in Mozambique. I like business. I like the trading. I like the negotiation. So I think in my own personal life, that then made me a lot more discerning about what do I want and what don't I want. I think we always got to match where we're going with personal. However, it doesn't always intersect at the right stages for many reasons. And so I'm not your cookie cutter person that was married for 25 years, have 2.5 kids, 3 dogs, and picket fence, and I've got a big bank account. No, that's not me. I think I'm in a way I'm the serious maverick, the serious business person who was always wanting to take the raw material of something and has the personal satisfaction of turning it around. So that's where the alchemy comes in. I want to take raw data, raw potential. I mean, I love raw data. I love the way IT now can spew out all this information, and then we can all look at it. And we're still all in a business strategy meeting, look at and find different things. And so that's the thing that fascinates me. I like the diversity. I like it that 6 of us are going to have a different opinion, but we need to find the common ground. And I love being that mediator, that facilitator. I think, so that's how in personal life, I never followed that path. So work and career, living in Zimbabwe, living in Zambia, living in Botswana, being in Vic Falls recently, all of that created perhaps the landscape of my life, which is very different for a woman. I don't fit into a category. And that's why sometimes, perhaps in social and in personal life, I don't fit into a category. So thank goodness for some of my friends who don't care about that, and I'm invited anyway. I don't have to have a partner, or I don't have to have 3.5 kids. So, it's fun. I enjoy being me.
I like that. And I remember when we started the show today, you were talking about how everybody has a uniform, so to speak, of how to show up. You know, their hair is all the same, and they all have to show up at the same, maybe shops and do the same thing, send kids to the same schools and things of that nature. But you've worked extensively in Africa, where, from my memory, there's usually just a top-down decision-making scenario where, I don't know, maybe things have probably changed, where really inclusive leadership, it's all about titles. It's all about, showing up, who's got what, and it's quite opposite to what you are presenting here. Hasn't that created somewhat of a friction with the people that you would then have to, encounter or actually have to work with as colleagues?
See, I think I was so fortunate to have 3 really inspiring managers. So one was Herbert Nkala, who was the CEO of Rainbow Tourism Group, and Herbert's background was in marketing. And Rainbow had 7 hotels, all mid-level, and I had been working in 5-star hotels in sales and marketing. And people said, "Oh my goodness, how can you go to Rainbow, government-owned, with 3-star, no star? Oh, like the 4th Street saga in Bulawayo. How can you be doing that?" But that little Ambassador Hotel, on I don't know if it was a Wednesday or Friday, they had African food for lunch. The whole of Harare would come there, and it was the only place where they would wash your hands and do the whole traditional thing. We live in Africa, and in Zimbabwe is more British than ever, and it's got nothing to do with the colonialists. It's because our schooling system and our background, and perhaps people's aspirations, we're pretty English here in Zimbabwe. So I liked the fact that we need to draw in the African influence and look at that. So Herbert Nkala was ahead of his time. He was smart. He knew where he was going. The companies were being listed. I had so much experience with that. Then Roy Meyering from Meikle's Hotel. He is a man host. He is the one that's always walking the floor. And if only managers in not only hospitality, but where there's customer interface, the banks. Have you ever seen a manager from the bank walking around checking why there's a queue at lunchtime because there's only one teller? But they'll go and spend a fortune on an offsite to discuss the customer. That's ridiculous. Get out of your chair. Get away from the computer. Stop looking at data down to the last fraction. The data is supposed to give you a guide. Then get out of your office. So Roy Meyering, if we were caught in our office during check-in time and we knew when the flights were coming in, and back in the day in the 90s, there were more than 50 flights coming into Harare. So we knew the check-in times at breakfast, at lunch, at dinner, and checkout. Be present. Then you'll see all the customers, you'll talk to them. You don't then have to go and do some crazy lead generation, marketing funnel, sales funnel, negotiation skills. The customers are under your nose. So Herbert and Carlo used to say, big timber. Meeting, big timber. And then through all of this, with those two managers, I started to realize that my slogan then became fish where the fish are. If you're in the hotel, if you're in a retail business, if you're in manufacturing, go and look for where the customers come. Is it your warehouse? Is it the depot? It's not normally your shiny front office. So that was what led me and guided me on my journey. And then DHL, Sean Gent, was powerful, strong, go-getter. He came from the era when DHL was owned by the Americans, and they would give you a briefcase money and say, go into this territory, set it up, bye. Later on, it was taken over by the Germans and became very, very process orientated. So they rewarded people and managers that stood out. They rewarded managers that shook the status quo. And actually, if you didn't shake it, you got a dress down in your performance appraisal. So I was lucky to work for brands that had leaders. So one an international and the other two homegrown Zimbabwean brands that had leaders that were world class. They had not put themselves in a box. And so, like I liked Gary Player, like I liked Napoleon, I love history and I love Napoleon. And he always said, work with your troops, work in the trenches, and then you'll get respect. And that's what I've done. I've worked with the troops. So if I go in as the managing director, I want to have an engagement with the heads of department, and then with the next level of supervisors, and then the team. And I want to meet every single person. So when I became managing director at M.E.D.I.A 8 years ago, there were 400 staff. I want to meet them. I want to know who they are. So it's really important that people are seen, because if people are seen, they do their job, and they are the ones that are doing the job. It's not me with my fancy title. So I was always very, very aware of that because of how I came through the ranks. And I don't just appoint somebody through the ranks into a position, because you do need to know the ropes. And so that comes into where I am now, where I'm saying I've gone through those things. And although business has changed, it's still very much the same. You need somebody to guide you through those stages as you get into senior management. Because especially if you're a woman, and especially if you're a person of color or a different culture, you do need a helping hand to just say, you're smart, you're good at what you do. Now you need visibility. You need to shine. How do you shine? And so that's the thing. So that's where the alchemy, it's been these managers all the way through. Zambia is a wonderful country. Zambia, it's a happy country. They've never had war. Same as Botswana. They haven't had war, not like Zim and South Africa. So different mentality. So that's what's fun. And with DHL, working as commercial manager, Central Africa, my territory was Central Africa. So Angola, fabulous, nice nightclubs. Was in that era when I was doing nightclubs, beautiful music, great music. And Mozambique is so different to Angola, even though they speak the same language. So if they're fighting over a brochure because the Portuguese isn't pure enough, Mozambique, do your brochure. Angola, do your brochure. Okay, we've sorted that out. Now the focus is 1, 2, and 3. Are we in alignment on that? Yes. Because you see, we get distracted by the brochure. The brochure, the English the translation is not correct. Malawi was just such a lovely, quiet, sedate, gentlemanly, womanly kind of place. So totally different again to Harare. Zim has become a bit like Kenya. Zim is fast and it's vibrant and there's lots happening. So each place, you've got to take the fun and the things that are happening. Yes, Harare's got traffic, but Harare's got momentum. So let's build on the momentum. Are we going to complain every day about the traffic? Are we going to complain about 1, 2, and 3? Everywhere we can spend our whole day moaning. So I'm not good with moaners. I'm not good with hearing the same stories over and over again. Let's do something. Let's turn it around.
Absolutely. You know what really fascinates me about all of this is you've taken all of these raw materials, raw people, raw cultures, and you've packaged them so much, because not so many people have that kind of experience for different cultures, different nationalities. And I mean, for people that are outside of Africa, they would just think Africa is one big country. But, you travel 100 kilometers that way, you're already in a whole different jurisdiction. You need new money, you need passports and things of that nature, moving in those sort of sectors. There's a story that you once related to me about your team in Zambia, how they were not being productive, and the only missing element and part was they just wanted some sort of food as they were doing their daily runs. That alone, that insight alone, boosting productivity, is something that not a lot of people would have had exposure to. Maybe you can relate back that story, because I find it very fascinating, noticing the human need, even though it goes against the bottom line of the company, but you managed to actually get and rallied your troops to get it all happening.
It was DHL in Zambia, and you have to deliver within 20 minutes. That's the standard for all shipments, and we were not making it. And I was still, besides being managing director in Zambia, I was still looking after Central Africa. So Sean Gent called me and he said, this Zambia of yours, you're not cracking it. What are you doing? Can you get it right? Why have you got it right everywhere else? And so I sat again, and I sat with the couriers, the drivers, and I said, how do we make this that DHL had brought in was a frisbee. So from Australia, frisbee, the thing that you throw. Well, for them, it was like so alien. They used it as plates. They said, we're not going to throw this. It was the anchor was you throw it and see how far you can go. So you, the driver, must see how far you can go. Well, it was like, this doesn't relate to me. I'm using it as a plate. And then they said, you know what? We get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. We come to work by 5. We start sorting the packages and parcels, and if we deliver by within 20 minutes from 7:30, 8 o'clock, we haven't eaten. We're hungry, and we keep on delivering. We come back at lunchtime. We take another lot. We might have a quick bite, but we start our day hungry. So I then brought in an urn, and we call them tiki buns. These delicious little buns my mum always used to buy for us. It was like a sugar coating on top, and chomp a few buns and your coffee. And why not have a tea and coffee station all day long? Who says I want to have coffee at 7 or at 8 or at 10 o'clock? Why can't the coffee station be there and tea station all day long, and I can go and have when I want? And people are not going to abuse that. They're not going to steal the tea bags and the sugars. And you start to be an auditor of tea bags instead of looking at the team need to eat something before they start work. Don't you? Wouldn't you want to? You're getting in your nice car or on your bus or on your train, and other people are walking and they've bathed out of a bucket, and you then want to say you must deliver within 20 minutes, or in other organizations, you must smile when the customer walks in. and guess what? It worked.
Absolutely.
It was, I mean,
That's the reason why I wanted you to repeat this story, because so many people are always looking at the profit and loss statement and thinking, why is it not working, without them having actually engaged the employee and, got them enrolled with the actual mission of what is actually happening. Now, maybe we are in a situation where people cannot be incentivized with tiki buns or coffee throughout the whole day. But what I've actually noticed, Carol, with the work that you do, employee engagement is just a recurring theme in your work. And it now really shows, because you started off in those trenches yourself, so you have an understanding of what it's like to be the person at the bottom of the rung. But what sort of strategies have you found most effective in motivating teams along the way that you've used that other people can actually grasp from this conversation today?
I think, and I just have to tell you a quick story that's coming to my mind. When I was at ProsperTaruvinga in Toby 3 years ago, we had the Forbes under 30 millionaires coming in, and we were hosting them, 500 people that we were having meals for, and then the whole hotel was full. And I had thought that we'd had enough meetings that everybody knew about it, because, we'd cascaded it down. And the waiter was talking to me at lunchtime, and I said, "Are you excited about, Forbes under 30?" And he said, "I don't know anything about it." I said, "What?" So I called a big meeting, not all together, in groups of 40. And the one lady who worked in engineering, who was some maintenance, who had been with the company since it started in 30 years, she said, "I do not understand. You people are having cranberry juice and orange juice for welcome drinks. That's not African. This big baobab tree in the front of the hotel, it was the center signature piece. The baobab juice is, as you know, iconic. It's medicinal. It's whatever." She said, "But these young people, they don't know how to do it properly. I'm going to my village. I'm going to get the baobab seeds. I'm going to crush them. I'm going to show the chef how to do it, and we're going to add yogurt, and we're going to have them in little shooter glasses, and we're going to." And I'm reminding you, this is the lady from maintenance who's been in the company 30 years, who has never been asked ever, because she's never been in a little powwow strategy meeting, are we on the same page? We are getting we expect housekeeping and all the frontline people to interact with these under 30 millionaires, and they don't even know why they're coming. And so it was a huge lesson. And funny enough, the Motswana people, they did not like the baobab. They wanted their cranberry juice. So fine, you can have your cranberry juice. The tourists and the foreigners, and we had that done all the time, and a write-up about the baobab. And the story around that hotel was the baobab. So what should we be doing? We get the people that we never talk to, the porters, the drivers. The drivers are your most important people. They're the ones that have got funny frayed collars. I'm looking at how nice your collar is. And I'm always look at that, because people wear those. There's no formal attire with ties and jackets that you can hide scrappy shirts under. So if your collar is not pressed and this is fraying, do we look at that as managers? We've got our new shoes and our new handbag. What are your team wearing? So ask them the questions. What do you think about the business? They love the brand more than you. They have been doing that brand. And they see managing directors, operations managers, commercial managers, finance managers coming and going, and they go, yawn, yawn, yawn. They're going to come in and cut down toilet paper, tea bag, sugar, and fuel and marketing expenses and think they're running the company. But hello, talk to the people. Find out the temperature. Get rid of all the housekeeping issues. I didn't get my leave pay for 10 years. This happened to me, that happened, the grudges. Sort out all the housekeeping issues. And don't make that the focus of the meetings. Always focus on what the company goal is. Get everyone aligned to that. And you just need to do it depending on how big the company is. If it's smallish, in groups of 20, if it's big, in groups of 40. And then you do that every 2 months. And then you cross them, do them in their own departments, then you mix them up. In the recent company at Shearwater, where I was recently, operations and sales and marketing had never met before. We had engagements between the different departments. And they said, oh, it's so nice to meet somebody from bungee. It's so nice to meet somebody from rafting. And so I also say to people, what's stopping you from going to meet your fellow workers? If you're speaking on the phone to dispatch every day, why don't you go and meet them? So I also encourage, it's a two-way traffic. Get up, get off of your chair, get out of the office, go and meet the people. Find out who the players are. Find out where the power bases are. Find out where the clicks are, so that you can maneuver, that you can create your own alignment. That, I think, is very, very important. So engagement. And if the top never talk to the next level or the next level, it cascades and it becomes a mess. So we have what we call benevolent dictators, and a lot of leaders now in business, they've been in companies for 10, 20, 30 years in those big positions. And they become demigods. And so it's my way or the highway. And so that's tricky. So you have to show that you're able to meet the targets, and if you can meet the targets, and if you can make a difference, you will have a voice. If you don't have a voice, you then have to make a decision. Does the shoe fit? And you don't have to be self-sacrificing. You're not married to a company. You are exchanging your values, your work for the pay packet. It doesn't mean you need to be treated like a slave. It does not mean that you need to be scared every day that you go to work. So I really think that people need to own and take control and look at it. And you don't have to be the big boss. You don't even have to be the boss. And you can make a difference.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for taking us through that, and that really exemplifies why you are the alchemist, because not a lot of people would look to ask the janitor questions about, what the clients say while he's sweeping the rooms and what can he eavesdrop through the windows. I can only just see a scenario like that he could be helping them in the garden there, and then they could just say something about the company, and that is insights that you could utilize and things of that nature. But do you know what I mean? With your track record, yes, obviously this is for profit type setup where in the business you're helping them, connect with the employee, which then results in the trickle down effect of connecting with the customers per se. But you've also worked in not-for-profit organizations and also community levels where people are not being paid, but you seem to have obviously rallied the troops and gotten people to be incentivized and work towards a worthy cause. Now, how do then these experiences in business translate to when somebody's not actually being paid? As you've mentioned, the people that are doing certain things and giving certain results is only because they're getting a pay packet.
I'm not sure. I think, again, you have to align what you're doing. So if the person does not enjoy what they're doing, they're not going to be able to be effective.
Right.
So it's really looking at that. We the book Good to Great by Jim Collins.
Jim Collins.
The main theme of the quite a technical book is get the right people on the bus. So before you start anything, so if you're working looking after elephants, or you're working looking after whatever, it's have you got the right people in the place? Do they believe in the cause? And so you have to work around that, and I think companies need to know what their vision is, and they write vision and mission and goals. And I rather like, I've seen recently a manifesto or a customer charter or a company charter. What are we really promising? I think I'm allergic to reading a mission statement in the lobby of a business. I want to go crazy. I want to take it and say, for free, I will ask 10 people and they will not know what the mission is in this company. And I will ask 10 customers, you're not fulfilling that mission. So why are we still doing that? So I'd like to also, so whether it's for not for profit or for business, or even, what you plan to do for a holiday, it all has to align. Why are you doing it? What is your motive? Do you want to go to Casablanca? We had very, very high level tourists come to Vic Falls, and the sons, our boss was selling, go whitewater rafting, go bungee, go on a cruise, go to Botswana, do this. And you know what the youngster wanted to do? He wanted to go to the bookshop that's got all the historical books and paintings and whatever. He bought 10 books about the history of the region. He went to his suite. He didn't even go and look at the Victoria Falls. So listen. So that the parents, before they came, maybe they should have said to the agent, please let us have a cultural tour. History and culture, books. We want books. And then we could have made it even more exciting, because we would have got people, some eminent people from the area to come and talk to them. Are you looking at colonial history? Are you looking at cultural history? Do you want to look at the tribes? Do you want to learn about David Livingstone, or do you want to learn about the African history? What do you want to learn about? We would have brought one of the professors from Bulawayo, from the Faculty of Humanities, to come and talk to them, because that's the level. So that's the level I like to get into. I can't do superficial.
I like that. Because from what I'm understanding and what you're saying, no two fingers on the same hand are of the same height. So we shouldn't just bring it just because we think this is what the company needs. We should actually be out there listening, not only to our customers, but also to our employees, the people that are actually dealing with, the people on the ground. And can you imagine the satisfaction that kid would have received if somebody would have just taken them to, like a bookshop where all his needs would have been met at that particular time. Now, Carol, obviously we could go on and on. There's quite a lot, 5 decades, worth of information and content and context. Now, what would be the best way, just in case somebody has been so intrigued in what we're talking about, what would be the best way that people can get a hold of you and maybe, start their journey to see how you can become the alchemist in their business?
I think DM me on LinkedIn, and then my email address is also there. So that's very simple. Or WhatsApp me.
Absolutely. I'll definitely make
I
sure that
love,
all.
yes, I love WhatsApp because I'm always on my phone. LinkedIn, I have to remember to go and look.
Absolutely. I'll make sure that all those links are in the show notes and people can get started on their journey. And for those that are watching right now, thank you so much for obviously choosing the Online Prosperity Show, for being your source of information when it comes to team engagement and leadership. And as you have heard from Carol, there's so much that you can unearth, especially if you listen to the people that are in your employ. Now, my question to you is, I want you to reflect on your experiences, and I want you to reflect on how you have been showing up in your business. If you've encountered challenges in leadership or team engagement, I want you to share your thoughts and stories in the comments below, and let's foster a community that shares ideas and resources so that each and every one of us can create a business that's profitable and enjoyable. Now, Carol, I mean, when we started this conversation, you introduced us to young Carol, who only just had O levels, showing up, in the busy streets of Bulawayo, learning to type, and obviously, coming in and out of Barclays Bank and just really trying to set herself up, and all the people that you mentioned who definitely were helping you along the way. But you did mention one of your ultimate wishes was to be a journalist. Now, has that happened?
I guess formally no, but I write all the time. So when I was in Zambia, I wanted to meet the owner of the independent newspaper, Fred Membi, and it took me 3 years to get an appointment with him. Because in Zambia, they had billboards that were talking about poverty and AIDS everywhere, and the newspapers only had that narrative. And I wanted to go and say, why is it, are you only talking about this? There's so much else in Zambia. Zambia is an incredible country. Why can't the people see how incredible it is? So eventually I got a meeting, and his PA said to me, you've got 20 minutes. And I walked in, and I've never had since then such a fascinating discussion. And I told Fred, I wanted to be a journalist. I don't like your billboards and the narrative in your newspapers, and it's got to stop. And can you change it? And I spent 3 hours with him. He took me all over the newspaper rooms, etc. And he said, write me 3 articles, 500 to 800 words, about anything, about the things that you are thinking we all should be doing in Zambia. Don't restrict yourself to a topic. Don't say, I'm only talking about sales, or I'm only talking about whatever. And so I thought, okay. I wrote for 5 years. Every single Thursday, my column came out, and I really got a good profile in Zambia. I'm better known in Zambia than in Zim. And so that was the springboard for me for change management training, for speaking engagements, radio programs, TV programs. Zambia was very embracing. It really is a wonderful country. So that was really nurturing. And wherever I've been, I've written the newsletter. So it's so funny, even when I was the manager or the managing director, there's me, I'm writing the newsletter, because no one wants to write a newsletter. And at least once I start writing it, everybody can start criticizing and adding as people do, and we get a newsletter out. What's so complicated about a newsletter, in my opinion? So I love that. I love writing. I'm just going through all my writing and my articles, because can't find my hard drive that has got it on that's got the articles saved. And I'm looking back and having some fun with what I wrote. And then put together a book, and it was badly done. So I don't like it. But anyway, it's there, and I shared it with a colleague, and him and his pal are reading it every morning. when they have their coffee. And so people message me, and he was the one that started calling me Coach Carol. His name is Kevin. So he'll say, Coach Carol, you said this, this, and this. And I'm saying, really? I mean, I don't remember that. That's like 15 years ago. So I've had fun. I write. So I might not be a journalist, but I'm a writer. And that's okay for me.
Absolutely. And that's a really happy ending to this wonderful tale. And thank you so much for taking us on this journey, Carol, because your life story and your experience have so much value for anyone that's looking to grow their business, especially if they have a team and they are actually looking to be present and show up for their customers, because you've been in the trenches and you know firsthand what it's like to be the underdog, and you've rose through the ranks, and now you're sending down the elevator, helping other people as Coach Carol. And that is such a remarkable thing that you are living us with now. You've obviously showcased 5 decades of excellence in the work that you have done. What's next, Carol? What should we expect from you?
I'm in the process of selling a townhouse with 3 bedrooms and downsizing to my settle maybe forever place, and now wanting to do the coaching, mentoring, online, face to face, and also do these engagement sessions with companies, put together a bundle, work with HR. Let's look at talent development. I can coach your team, and also we can have this powwow session that looks at strategy. It's not all hugging, kissing, happy stuff. It's hard business. It's like, do you fit in or don't you fit in? And how do we get to feel the culture of this company? And if the culture is not correct and senior management want to change, how are we going to work together? So that's what I want to do. And I'm writing about my son. My ex-husband and I, he was Dutch, adopted a black child when he was 4, and they live in Scotland, and it was his 50th birthday. And because they've been away for so long and the children don't know Africa, I really want them to understand Meshek's roots before we had him, and also from the time we had him, so that one day when I'm not here, Granny Gogo's book is there talking about what Mish did at Courtney Silly School. So, yeah, that's what I'm also working on.
Absolutely. What a legacy you're imparting, not only in the business and leadership realm, but also in your personal life, for those that will have the privilege of calling you a friend, a grandma, a mother, a sister, a colleague, or somebody they have come across. Now, I can't thank you enough for the time we spent on the call today.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
It's been fun. Thank you.
Absolutely. For those that are watching right now, thank you so much for joining us on yet another enlightening episode of the Online Prosperity Show. And we took a journey down memory lane with Carol White. And I think her story is a testament to the power of adaptability, inclusive leadership, and just the courage to embrace change. Now, if today's conversation resonated with you, consider sharing this episode with somebody who is stepping into leadership or has just recently been promoted and really wants to show up in a really strong way in their business. This could be your brother, a sister, or a colleague, or somebody that you know that has just recently gotten a promotion at work. They're going to need this kind of motivation and support from people like Carol, that has been down the trenches and have come out rising like a phoenix. Now, while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe for more insightful and inspiring content like this. And I encourage you to stay tuned, because in our very next episode, we're going to be exploring ideas to enhance your happiness and well-being. Remember, the path to prosperity is paved with knowledge, empathy, and a willingness to involve. Until next time, stay curious and keep striving for excellence. Bye for now.